So I was born in New York City. Someone hit my town on 9/11. It's been 23 years and I'm still massively pissed off about it. I decided sometime after that I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to better securing our country. I don't understand why the 2+ million soldiers in a theater of war get an unbelievable amount of capabilities, but the 2+ million officers and guards on our own soil don't have that. Here's a gun, a phone, a CB radio, and a taser. Like, good luck. Well, we kind of need to fix this injustice because the local, state, and federal government are not going to fix this because they're not set up to do that. And so I've been kind of working the same problem over and over and over and over again.
Okay, so William Lee, I know that you usually go by Bill, but I just want to say thank you for coming on. You're the CEO and founder of Knightscope. You guys have a suite of products on the security and safety industry. You're listed on the NASDAQ, ticker KSCP. So before we get into Knightscope and everything you guys are doing, I want to go back a little bit. So I saw in a past interview that you used to be in a heavy metal band. So what what was the name of your band? Where did you guys perform? Can you fill us in a little bit about that?
Oh my goodness. Let's see. There is a few. Like when I was a kid, I think it was Archangel. I think there was Marauder. Probably the one that's semi alive. Me and the guys once every half a decade get together is Tongue and Groove. But yeah, my hair used to be down to here and kind of 80s metal dude.
So you were probably, 18, 19 at that point in your life.
Yeah, I think the hair started growing probably a little bit before that.
So looking back then at the bill back then, did you always have the ambitions to kind of go into this kind of industry? Did you always want to run a public company, or was that just something you weren't even thinking about at that point in your life?
Probably wasn't thinking about that, but I did have a fascination of complicated products that have an aspect of branding, engineering, physically manufacturing something, and having someone have an emotional attachment to it. So that kind of drove me to the automotive industry, where you spend a couple $1 billion, maybe I don't know, 4 years, 400 prototypes and 400 teammates, and I don't know why the number four is kind of key there, but
Mm.
um, you get the product out the door and you get really excited, as opposed to, I don't know, nothing wrong with financial services or apps and that sort of thing. It's just not me. I need to be able to touch and feel something. So I think for what we're doing now at Knightscope, it's a kind of same unique combination of technologies that have a different impact on society and how people relate to them. But I still kind of look at the stuff as, in one way, a lot easier to than to build a car, but in a lot of ways, a lot harder because they need to run autonomously 24/7 without anyone remote controlling it. So
Right.
it's been, I think my time in Detroit at Ford Motor Company was a awesome training ground for what I'm doing now at Knightscope.
Yeah. So how long did you work for Ford at Ford Motor Company? Was that your first job out of college?
Yeah, I had applied. So I didn't come from a wealthy family, so I was scrambling to graduate early. So I went to UC Berkeley when I was in high school. I went to Yale while I was in high school, and then I spent the summer at Carnegie Mellon as well. And so I was able to graduate a year early from Carnegie Mellon. I've got a bachelor's in electrical engineering and a minor in mechanical. And I really wanted to work in the auto industry. I think I must have sent like 64, 65 resumes out when you used to like physically send
Right.
stuff out, um, to like 64 positions to try to get just an internship. And my number one spot I wanted to work at was Ford. I got 60, whatever, 4 rejections, and then 2 job offers for the summer, and both of them were from Ford, which was just hilarious. And then I told myself I was going to work really hard that summer, and there was no way in hell they were not going to hire me back. And so I took a really not great calculated risk and didn't interview with pretty much anyone that junior/senior year because I was graduating early. And then my old boss from the summer called me up and said, "Hey, we have an open position. Would you like to come back?" Score. So I spent 10 years there, 12 different jobs, 4 different continents, every functional area. If you go to my LinkedIn profile during that period, I literally look like I'm unemployable. Like I can't keep a job. Every like few months, I'm getting promoted or double promoted to go work on different parts of the company, which was,
Wow.
again, an awesome training ground. I got to see component systems, vehicle engineering, product strategy, market research, manufacturing rationalization. I was director of mergers and acquisitions. I built a company for Ford. So it was a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah. So there's probably going to be a lot of people watching this who are either just getting started in their career, maybe they haven't even started yet, they're about to graduate from college. What would you say to those guys? Because you've done it before. You've gone from internship all the way up to the executive level, really seemingly like fast. So like, what kind of advice would you give to those?
Well, first, I think it should be guys and girls. Hopefully, we need a lot more women in STEM and engineering and the like. A few random thoughts. One, I've probably had more than 1,000 people work for me. I've interviewed a lot of folks, and it's horrifying to find someone in their mid 20s, mid 30s, and still don't know what they want to do with their life or the like. And the numbers not important, but there's always this, like, if you spend 10,000 hours on something, you're finally going to become close to an expert or be fluent. Like the earlier in your career that you can pick the thing would be really important, because over time it's kind of like interest. It compounds and you just keep viewing life over that one lens that you're really trying to understand. Would be important. I think the other thing that's important is to straddle things. Um, and what I mean by that is it's both our schools and our corporations, in my view, breed a lot of the wrong people. And what I mean by that is, let's see, in school, I'm going to do mechanical engineering. No, I'm going to do physics. No, I'm going to do biology. No, I'm going to do math. No, I'm going to do material science. And I'm sorry, but that's not how the world works. It's not just like little areas, especially for example, in robotics or automotive. You need things to kind of work together as a system. So the person that's going to be profoundly more effective is where they have a weird combination of something. Yeah, I'm fluent in biology and material science, or I'm got a computer science degree and I'm fluent in finance as well, or some combination of things where you can be profoundly more valuable because you have different perspectives.
Right.
And a lot of cases on the roboticist side, a lot of folks that come out aren't really robotics engineers. They're software engineers who have no fluency in electrical engineering, in firmware and telecommunications and mechanical engineering, materials or anything else. But somehow I'm a robotics engineer, and that's not the real true essence of what you really need in order to be successful. And I think the last one is your career development is your career development. Like what I did at Ford was probably not a good advice here, but it was always do do my boss's job, and always be 10 steps ahead of everyone else, and be reliable and be able to have people go, well, I don't know how to fix this. Get Bill over there to fix it, because obviously he kind of knows what's going on and what's about to happen. And if you get really good at it, you should always be 2 or 3 steps ahead of the entire organization and your immediate supervision. Then people start going, okay, I think this person can go fix this problem that we don't know how to fix. And that requires you to be extremely have a learning aspect, but you need to go aggressively go figure that out. Like a silly example is when I was an intern at Ford. Um, you know, 5 o'clock would be over, and everyone's kind of leaving, and I'm still at my desk, and my supervisor comes over, was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, well, I went to the world headquarters and and this is old school, I got all whatever 20 plus years of annual reports, and I'm physically putting it into an Excel spreadsheet so I can analyze where you guys are missing the boat. And I was working in, ignition engineering for electronics to, how you get that technology into an engine. And my boss is like, why are you looking at this stuff? I'm like, well, if I'm going to come back here, I want to know how I'm going to fix this problem, because obviously your balance sheet looks awful and you're losing market share, and you've got 1 or 2 vehicles making up for all the sins of all the other vehicles. So maybe some changes are required. And that's, you need to kind of proactively go do that. No supervisor is going to come over to you and go, yeah, I think you should go to the treasury office and go get, and start analyzing all this stuff. You
Right.
need to be proactive. And unfortunately, a lot of folks are just waiting, can you please be my mentor? Can you please spoon feed me? Hey, listen, maybe I'm sound a little rough because I'm a Gen X guy, but like, go freaking do the work, and stop waiting for someone to hand you something.
Yeah. Wow. That's really good advice. Now, that I want to move into another thing, which is 2 days ago was the anniversary for 9/11, and I know that that event has a certain motivating factor for you. What was your experience on that day, and how that shape what you're doing today?
Uh, so I was born in New York City. Someone hit my town on 9/11. It's been 23 years and I'm still massively pissed off about it. And what I meant earlier, maybe to tie that back to the prior conversation, like pick something that you really want to do or you love and just kind of keep at it. I decided, sometime after that, I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to better securing our country. I don't understand why the 2+ million soldiers in a theater of war get an unbelievable amount of capabilities, and there are multi-billion-dollar companies building every widget possible for that soldier to have at their fingertips an incredible level of lethal force. But the 2+ million officers and guards on our own soil don't have that. Like, here's a gun, a phone, a CB radio, and a taser. Like, good luck. And I think that was my view as to, well, we kind of need to fix this injustice because the local, state, and federal government are not going to fix this because they're not set up to do that. And so I've been kind of working the same problem over and over and over and over again. And, I live here in Silicon Valley. There's 20+ thousand startups. 95% of them fail. Part of it's, wrong market, wrong technology, bad execution, didn't raise enough money. And part of it is just like people just give up. And unfortunately, the financing mechanisms that are around here kind of encourage that. If like a VC can't see some sort of light very quickly, because usually they're wrong 9 times out of 10, oh, it's been 18 months, you haven't made any progress, like let's shut it down. Or the entrepreneur just decides to quit too early. In a lot of cases, the folks that have been very successful just kept at it and just kept at it, and to the exhaustion of themselves, possibly their teammates, their family, and the markets. But those that are extremely driven and want something corrected, fixed, some sort of innovation out in the market, they're just going to keep pounding the problem until you force what you want done to get done. And, you need a certain amount of stamina You got to have maybe a screw loose to be doing this. But that's why it's really important you pick what you really have a passion about and stick to it, knowing that it's going to have a meaningful impact on society. Life is short. Do what you love and make a big impact. And to pick on the photo sharing people, like I had a very frustrating conversation some years ago with like half a dozen PhDs that had just graduated from very prestigious schools. Like, hey, so what are you working on? Oh, we're working on how to make some sort of new game to take social media stuff and stick it into a new app. And that's what we're placing our, very deep experience and have all this intellectual capacity from our PhDs. We're going to work on a game. And I almost lost it. It's like there are people needing help. There are opportunities to create real value. You're going to take your intellectual capacity and this is what you want to work on?
Mhm.
Like, not my cup of tea.
Right. And you guys are adding a lot of value to security. From what I understand, your security robot, it essentially acts as an extension to a security guard for law enforcement. Can you just explain really quickly for people who don't understand how, your data collection process works, how people can use that to make environments more safe?
Sure. Let me split the discussion into two pieces very quickly. The first one is probably less obvious. Everyone's like, why are these robots so big? Like they're 5 foot tall, 400 pounds for one of them. We have multiple products out in the field, and it's just that physical deterrence. Like if I put a cop car in front of your home or your office, criminal behavior will change.
Right.
You pull into a parking lot at 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's this machine roaming around, making some sounds. Maybe it greets you. There's a strobe light going. It says police or security on the side. You don't know really what it does. Like, you know what? I think I'll steal the car somewhere else. And
Mhm.
that's literally what's been happening. Um, there are, as I mentioned, 2+ million, 2.5 million officers and guards across the country. It's not maybe a popular thing to say. There's not enough officers and guards to be doing what we're doing to better secure the country. And you're like, well, how can you say that? Well, go call up the FBI. Like, how many violent crimes occur in just a few seconds? Every 26 seconds, a violent crime occurs. A property crime every 4 seconds. So you can't tell me that all the guards and officers and the whatever 80 million cameras and 300,000 law enforcement vehicles are doing an unbelievable job because there's nothing on the FBI crime clock. Like, not the case. Okay, so if you accept that it doesn't work, well, what's missing? Well, just do the math. You got 2.5 million officers and guards. They're running 24/7. So you actually need to divide that by four because people have, need to take breaks, need to sleep, and everything else. So there's maybe, I don't know, 600 odd thousand humans at any given time across 50 states, multiple time zones, and trying to secure 332 million Americans. Like, the math doesn't work. It's actually laughable. And so what we're trying to do is try to put 1 million machines in network that could actually run 24/7 and give eyes, ears, and their voice on the ground to the officers and guards so they can cover a lot more territory. These are tools to help them do their jobs much, much more effectively.
So how exactly do they do that? How do they allow them to do their jobs more effectively?
So imagine you're the one security guard at a massive, I don't know, warehouse. Like, there's this funny saying in security, like if you have so many cameras that you can't see. Why? Because humans are, not good after a few minutes, like you're going to tune out. Like we're having this conversation right now. I'm like focused on one person. But if I have like a massive wall, like you see in these, science fiction movies or crime shows, they have a whole wall of stuff. Could you imagine staring at this and trying to find the one thing that just happened? Like You have 100 cameras, you're literally blind. So what if we could use artificial intelligence and autonomy and robotics to help the officers and guards, quote unquote, see better? Like, what if we can read several hundred license plates a minute? What if we can detect there's a person when there's not supposed to be a person there? What if we can run a thermal scan of an environment and go, that's kind of high risk of a fire over here? Like, that's not stuff that a human's going to be able to do consistently 24/7 with a perfect memory, right? But if you could give that to the one guard and quote unquote promote him or her, and have an opportunity for them to manage 7 robots and be able to quote unquote be everywhere, but do it remotely. And then the machines are really good at doing the monotonous, computationally heavy stuff, like the boring tasks, and let the humans do the decision making, enforcement, arrests, and the like, despite what everyone wants to put on TV or the big movie screen. And these are, again, tools for folks to be able to see, feel, hear, smell, speak, and have them cooperate autonomously. And that's kind of our long term vision, to have 1 million of these machines have unprecedented capability. And then that makes life extremely, extremely painful and miserable for anyone who dare to attempt to cause harm to everyday Americans.
I know you guys don't just make the autonomous robots. You guys actually have like 10 different products that you sell. When did you um it wasn't always you didn't always have so many products. When did you guys introduce all these products? And how's that affected the business?
One, it's been done over time, and there's going to be a lot more. And I get a lot of criticisms. There's too many products. There's too many products, and yeah, it does create a lot of complexity, a lot of workload, and the like. But if you have the long-term mission in mind, which is you want to make the U.S. the safest country in the world, like criminals and terrorists can be anywhere. So if you're serious about the mission, you kind of have to be everywhere. And securing the underpass of a bridge is very different than securing a synagogue or a school or a data center or high value target, right? You need all kinds of different form factors, capabilities, to be able to do that. And you're fooling yourself if you think like my one single product's going to fix everything. Good luck with that.
Hmm. Yeah, and as I was looking through your products, I noticed and I really realized you guys have a product for every type of space that there is. Like you said, the robot isn't the ideal product for an underpass on a bridge, but your laser center or the wall-mounted data collection probe, that could be a better product for that area. And I've noticed over the past, call it 4 or 5 years, your revenue has just skyrocketed. I mean, you flatlined at about 3 million a year for annual revenue, and then 2022 it bumped up to 5 million, and then 2023 all the way up to 12 million. Where's that revenue coming from, and where is it going? Are you going to keep up this growth?
So obviously we don't necessarily provide guidance other than kind of really long term, and I'll get to your reason why. But long term, I think we have an opportunity to build a $30 billion company, that has a very wide portfolio of technologies, and we hope to earn the trust of the public and public safety, security, and law enforcement officials for us to be that trusted advisor,
Mhm.
because a lot of chief security officers, sheriffs, chiefs of police, their staffs and themselves, they are not fluent in all these crazy technologies.
Yeah.
And somebody is going to have to go, hey, you're trying to secure this perimeter here. Have you thought of X? They're like, X, I've never seen this before. What are you talking about? Right. And then how to implement it and how to manage it. And so over time, through organic growth, through acquisitions, and through partnerships, we'll build that arsenal of crime fighting technologies to do ground, sea, and air, and make sure that we have a extremely wide and deep portfolio so that we can always show up at a client and go, you're missing X and you're missing Y. I know you're asking for Z. In our experience, probably is not going to help you. Let's, here's three proposals on how you can potentially fix your problem. Because you imagine, it's almost like, I don't know, when the internet first came online, or email, or just the IT department didn't exist before. It's kind of in that kind of same realm where these security professionals and law enforcement professionals are overwhelmed with new kinds of capabilities and technologies. And then once you implement them, it gets even worse because I had one chief security officer. He showed me his iPhone at 7:30 in the morning, and he had 10,300 alerts in his phone. I'm like, how are you and your team supposed to be able to do your job? Like, that's not a manageable type of thing. And this is why AI and robotics can, with some human monitoring, can be extremely helpful. But again, back to where you started the conversation is, if I grew up just thinking about electrical engineering and all my entire lens of everything I saw was around electrical only, like, you wouldn't then think about, well, how can I use these lasers to fight crime? How can I think about, maybe it doesn't need to move. Maybe what the client really needs is, just a physical presence there. And again, the world is really complex, and you can't just download solutions from the cloud thinking everything's going to get fixed. That's not how the world works. And it makes me extremely annoyed where you've got a lot of investors who are spending way too much time on software, because supposedly hardware is hard, and discouraging entrepreneurs from going after their passions or trying to solve a real problem because the financing source isn't fluent in that particular area. To me, this is the equivalent of like five lawyers getting together, starting a new hospital, and then after the third day leaving the facility going, man, surgery is really hard. Hey, idiot, you didn't study this. You don't know how it works. Of course you think it's hard. Like, you shouldn't be going down that path and then discouraging people from going into surgery, or practicing medicine. And I think we need much more thoughtful investors who think about solving real world problems and using every capability that an engineer might have at his or her hands, because that's where the magic is, where you can actually take different disciplines and solve a problem in a completely different way than one would normally just think about, oh, well, I'm just going to put a fence there and that's going to fix the problem.
Right, right. So we're coming up on 30 minutes now. Are there any closing statements that you want to give to investors, people watching this interview? Any advice or something that you guys are exciting that you're going to be doing in the future?
Sure. I think if you want to learn more about what Knightscope is up to, please download the presentation that you can get at knightscope.com/rise, RISE. And there you can see kind of where as I often like to say, you can download the future today, and you can see where we're going and how. I think one of the exciting things that we're working on is the first generation K7 that is in development now. This is a four-wheel version of some of our autonomous security robot capabilities to go a bit higher speed and have more bells and whistles for us to cover a lot more ground. Super excited about that. And I think lastly, this year for us is kind of a clean house turnaround year where we built all these technologies. We weren't necessarily sitting there going, hey, is that the exact right material we should use for that? Or is that the right production process? Should we have selected that supplier? No, we're just trying to get it to work. And for those of you who want to challenge that, there's probably a couple hundred companies that burn through a couple $100 billion trying to get things to work autonomously, and no one shipped anything. Meanwhile, we were operating level 5, over 3 million hours across an entire country, generating millions of dollars of revenue. And yeah, the technology is extremely difficult. But now that we got it working, we need to optimize and make things efficient, etc. And I think investors typically should probably think about three things. Obviously, we can't provide financial advice. Do your own diligence and homework. But in general, I think a lot of investors worry about three things. One, is there market risk? Will the market collapse for what you're doing? I can pretty much assure you the market for crime is not going to collapse. 300 million people tomorrow are not going to be at risk for any criminal behavior. That's not a thing. So we've got a recurring revenue business model for a recurring societal problem. I think is probably the first point. Second point, is there technical risk? Do you know how to build this? Have you built it? Have you proven it? Does it work? Can things be made better? Sure, of course, everything can be made better. But we don't have that technical risk of, I don't know how to get from A to B. We don't have that problem. We're kind of in improving and efficiency mode, which will take some time to implement. And then the third is just execution risk. Can you actually design, engineer, build, sell, deploy, monitor, and service this, in a profitable manner? And we're highly confident that we can do that. If you just look at some of our clients that have renewed for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years on the subscription. And even if you just look at the most long-standing clients that are 5+ years old with us, just if you do a very coarse analysis, very handsome 60+% margins on just those deployments. And what we need to do now is obviously replicate that across the entire business. So I think over time, this is going to grow into a tremendous company. It's not easy, and it'll be a bumpy road. It was kind of bumpy getting here, but we're here. And now we're excited about delivering the future.
So one more question, because
there's never always just one more question.
was there ever a point, throughout developing this company where you didn't think it was going to work out, where things were getting really tough, and how'd you work through those problems?
Probably the story I've publicly shared, so I can kind of share again. There's a famous story where Elon Musk, almost lost Tesla because they had two weeks of cash on hand, and if they didn't get a deal done, the world was going to pretty much end. And he was able to save the company. Back 6+ years ago, we hired, I won't name the investment bank, they were supposed to raise some money for us, $20 million, and they ended up raising like 300 grand. And so that set us back for years. They almost bankrupted the company. And then for 15 months in a row, we were running out of cash every 2 weeks. There's a couple of times we were 2 hours. But in 11+ years, we've never missed a payroll, and we never ran out of cash. And that was extremely stressful to go through for 15 months in a row, working 120-hour weeks to make sure that the team could continue. We could continue with our clients and support our suppliers and everything else. And this is why you asked for advice. That's why you need to pick something that you're madly in love with, you're fanatical about, you're so passionate about, that when something like that happens, because it will happen. Remember, 95% of startups fail. You're going to be sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning, you need to decide how you're going to fix this problem. And you've got to be willing to do the sometimes illogical, irrational, often stupid things to just make sure that you can fight to live, to fight another day. and you got to have that passion within you to make it through. Because if you pick something that you're like, I don't feel like, that passionate about, someone's, got a gun to my head and is about to punch me in the face and has the guillotine out, am I going to fight back, or I'm just going to give in? And that's going to determine if you're going to make it or not. And so you better pick something that is impactful for society and that you're willing to go to the mat for. And you get, I always kind of joke around, what the founder's nutritional diet is: getting punched in the face for breakfast, getting kicked in the stomach for lunch, and then body slammed for dinner. And then you got to wake up the next morning all smiles and get on an interview like this and go, all's good, let's go. Right? And you better have that in you to be able to push forward. But tomorrow's going to be a brighter day, because we're going to force it to be so.
I think that was a beautiful closing statement. I want to say thank you for coming on. I'm really excited to see everything that you guys are going to do in the future. Anyone watching this, go check out Knightscope stock and let us know what you think in the comments. Thank you.
Good to see you. Thanks, Sam.